Hi everyone, this is Vivi. Happy Sunday. In the past few days, I got to know so many new friends from Book Talk. And again, welcome to Red Note. One thing I'm so thankful about, and I probably didn't realize this before, is there are so many nonfiction lovers on TikTok. And my comment section was flooded with all these great book recommendations. And I take your nonfiction book recommendation very seriously. I think I spent almost $200 in the past 2 days, only 2 days. You guys are gonna broke me. For example, this one, Defectors. I forgot who left the comment, but thank you so much. I just got this book about the Latino far right. For example, Sundown Towns. Again, thank you so much for recommending those great books, and I feel like I should give back. Many of you asked, what are some of the nonfiction books about China? And I was like, that's such a great question. So today's blog is about some of the nonfiction books about China I personally have read and some of my observations. I wouldn't necessarily say if you want to know about China, you got to read these books. I'll explain why, but I think most of the books written by non-Chinese, especially when written in English, most of the topics kind of fall out of the normal distribution, which is understandable. And it's the same thing here. If you go to Barnes & Noble, you will always find more books about either far, far left or far, far right. There are always less books about the middle ground, which is majority of the people. All right, here we go. So the first book I want to share, unfortunately, I have to cover the 2/3 of the cover and the title. Otherwise, I may get censored and I may lose my account. So the author is Frank de Cotter. He's a Dutch historian, and he wrote People's Trilogy, which is very, very famous. You can look it up if you're interested. The book looks like this in light blue. And I'm going to do this. All right. So I mentioned this book because most of the English books I can find here in the US about China, many are either about the really like higher up or about the 1949 to 1976 China. Yes, those historical events between 1940s and 1976 are undeniably important, critical to understand, but they don't necessarily tell you what's going on today. Because I personally think China in the or after the 1990s, it's a totally different ecosystem. So this book is one of the very, very few books I personally have read about China after 1976. And again, the author is Frank de Cotter, and the book looks like this. I say it's a relatively good one among the books I've personally read about modern China. It's less condescending, although still a little bit condescending. It does touch on the topics or issues that fall under the normal distribution. For example, the sandstorm, the cutthroat environment, the chasing for speed. But I still feel this book kind of falls into the cliche, which means attributing everything, I'm going to do this, attributing everything, every issue, every problem to the higher up. Well, I feel in the US, the people's day-to-day life may be more intertwined with the politics, the policy, the party. I personally think in China, ordinary people's life and the higher up, the party, the ideology, like whatever, are kind of separated. At least before 2021. So it's really hard to generalize or use politics, ideology, or conservatism, liberalism to explain everything observed in ordinary Chinese people's life. It's almost like we Chinese ordinary people, we have a totally different mindset, totally different philosophy. And the third book, I again have to cover the name because I think this book is bent. The title starts with Eat. And the author is Barbara Damick, and she wrote 3 books, I think, and then this is one of the 3. I personally love this book. I was shocked after finishing this book. Again, this is not a normal distribution book. It doesn't represent majority of the people in China, but it is about a history I personally never knew. It was not talked about. It was not taught in school. A good analogy is Tulsa, 1921. People just don't talk about it, like Tulsa, 1921. Victims, even the victims, they don't want to talk about it. So I'm so grateful I found this book. And this book gave me nightmare as well. And I dreamed of bleeding, burning for a few nights. It's just mind-blowing. All right, now you may get a little bit frustrated. So Vivi, you talk about books that fall out of the normal distribution. So what are some of the books in the normal distribution? I personally haven't read any great ones. I'm sorry, but my personal observation, again, this is just me. If I had to use a few words or phrases to summarize we, ordinary Chinese people, they'd be insecurity, probably not the most socially moral ones, and small and mighty. There's absolutely nothing negative about these phrases, these observations. So insecurity, I personally feel we Chinese people are very, very insecure. Insecurity is in our genes. It has nothing to do with your social status, economic status, nothing to do with how many degrees you get. You can see a lot of people, highly educated with PhD degree, flood into the job market and still struggle to find a job. And growing up, we're taught to know, or history taught us, no matter how comfortable life you have today, things can happen and change everything overnight, turn the life upside down. And you see examples everywhere. The event in 1960s, 1970s, and then the things happened between 2020 and 2022. And there's another great example. A few years ago, business were banned from providing the after-school training, English training, for example. So many people who were making 100K US dollars a year lost their jobs overnight. And the second observation, we are probably not the most socially moral people, and there's nothing, again, negative about it. And I think it has a lot to do with insecurity I was referring to. Advocating for social reform or pushing for social changes is not really encouraged in China. And I would say sometimes, or most of the time, you may get punished. And many authors make conclusions from a moral high ground, which is out of context. And my third personal observation is Chinese people, individuals, are small and mighty. Because of that insecurity, and because social morality may not be our top priority, we use all our energy to protect our families, our small groups, our beloved ones. I've been following a lot of the stories, news between 2020 and 2022. I feel like I almost cried every day during that 3 years. On one hand, you feel this deep, deep sadness, like why no one stepped up and say something. And on the other hand, you just can't stop shedding tears for these Chinese people, ordinary people, who have such a difficult time but sacrifice themselves for their beloved ones. I say I personally don't have a lot of respect in terms of the higher up, the whatever, the system, but I have so much respect for us Chinese ordinary individuals, ordinary people. I just hope there can be more books about we Chinese, ordinary Chinese. All right, that's today's vlog. See ya.